Good morning, students. Today we'll see the reasoning of questions in GIT. Okay. The first question: why cephalic phase of gastric secretion occurs? Yes, it is due to the sight, smell, taste, and thought of the food. And these stimulus they stimulate the vagal centers and it stimulate the gastric secretion in cephalic phase. So this phase occurs before the entry of food into the stomach. The next question, how vagovagal reflex operates? The answer is the distension of food causes the vagal nerve stimulation, and this vagal is acting as an afferent and go to the centers and higher centers, and again the vagal efferents they stimulate the parietal cell and causes HCl secretion. This is how the vagovagal reflex operates. This reflex occurs in the gastric phase of HCl secretion. The next question is how the saliva plays a role in local immunity. Saliva contains the IgA immunoglobulin, and immunoglobulin A act as a defense against the local organisms. The next question is why deglutition apnea occurs. In deglutition, that is during the pharyngeal phase, you have three phases: oral phase, pharyngeal phase, and esophageal phase. In the pharyngeal phase, the swallowing reflex is initiated, and this swallowing center inhibits the respiratory center, and it causes temporary cessation of breathing during swallowing, and that is called deglutition apnea. The next question, what is the cause for achalasia cardia? So it is due to the incomplete relaxation of the lower esophageal sphincter. Food accumulates in the esophagus and it causes the dilation of the lower part of the esophagus. It is due to the absence of the myenteric neurons in the lower esophageal sphincter, and that causes the defect in the peristalsis in the lower esophageal sphincter, and that is the reason why achalasia cardia occurs. So this is a healthy esophagus with a lower esophageal sphincter, and here due to the incompetent lower esophageal sphincter the food accumulates and causes dilation of the esophagus. Now, what is the cause for peptic ulcer? It is due to the depletion of the mucosal protective layer in the gastric mucosa, and that causes ulcers in the gastric mucosa. There are so many causes for these ulcers. One is using the analgesics. So the analgesics will cause a defective mucosal layer, damage to the mucosal layer. The next question, how peristalsis occurs? So this is the this picture shows the peptic ulcer, the gastric ulcers. How peristalsis occurs? Peristalsis is a type of movement in the small intestine. It is a propulsive movement that propels the food. Here the proximal segment contract and the distal segment relax, and it is due to the neurotransmitters released in the segments, and that causes propulsive movement. So this is how the proximal segment is contracting and distal segment is relaxing. The next question, how segmentation takes place? Segmentation is another type of intestinal movement where alternate contraction and relaxation of segments takes place, and it causes mixing type of movements. This movement helps in mixing of the food contents. The next question, why bile salt is required for fat absorption? See, bile salts forms the micelle, a part of micelle. Micelle is a carrier molecule, and this bile salt, along with phospholipid, they form the micelle, and this facilitates the fat entry into the watery layer present above the villi. So once the fat enters the watery layer, then it's very easy for the fat to get absorbed in the intestine. So the challenging part is the watery layer. To make entry into the watery layer, the micelle formation is taking place. And here the bile salts and phospholipids, they contain hydrophobic and hydrophilic portion. So the hydrophobic portion will be surrounding the fat globule. This is a fat globule, and the hydrophilic portion will be at the periphery, and this facilitate the entry of fat or the entry of the fat molecule into the watery layer. So these hydrophilic, they will touch the watery layer, get dissolved, and they make the entry of fat into the villi. What is the need for enterohepatic circulation? So it is to maintain a constant pool of bile salts, so that enterohepatic circulation is nothing but the reabsorption of the bile salts from the intestine into the liver. So through the portal vein, the bile salts will enter from the intestine to the liver. Again, it will be secreted in the bile, and from the bile, it will be entering the intestine. So this process maintains a constant pool of bile salts because the secretion is around 3 to 4 gram, but we need about 8 gram of bile salts for fat absorption. To maintain this pool, two times the bile salts will get circulated, and for 3 times a meal in a day, 6 times this enterohepatic circulation is taking place. Now, why fat is excreted in stools in pancreatitis? See, steatorrhea is a condition where fat is excreted in the stools, and it's due to the deficiency of pancreatic lipase, the enzyme required for the digestion of the fat. Due to this, there is an undigested fat is excreted in the feces. So pancreatitis causes pancreatic lipase deficiency and causing steatorrhea. Why paralytic ileus occurs? Paralytic ileus is also called adynamic ileus, and it is due to the repeated traumatization of the intestine during the surgical operations, causing absent peristalsis for longer duration, and it has to be treated. So the traumatizing the intestine will make the peristalsis to get more decreased. What is the cause for the Hirschsprung disease? Hirschsprung disease is also called aganglionic megacolon or congenital megacolon. It is due to the absence of meyenteric ganglion cells from birth, and peristalsis is absent in the rectosigmoid colon, causing longer duration of constipation. And feces get accumulated in the lower part of the colon, in the rectosigmoid portion. This is a congenital megacolon or aganglionic megacolon, where the lower part of the colon gets enlarged due to the absence of the ganglion, meyenteric ganglion cells. Now, why ostration occurs? Ostrations are a special contractions taking place in the large intestine, and it is due to the contraction of the tinea coli. Due to the tinea coli contraction, the longitudinal layers, there is a ballooning of uncontracted portions of the large intestine, causing ostrations in the large intestine. So this is the ostration seen in the colon due to the contraction of the tinea coli. Then why enteric nervous system is called the third division of autonomic nervous system? Since there is extensive connection and control by the sympathetic and parasympathetic over the local neuronal plexus. These local neuronal plexus act like an extension of the autonomic nervous system, especially myenteric and mesenteric plexus. Myenteric under the parasympathetic and mesenteric is under the sympathetic influence. So they are called as the third division of the autonomic nervous system. Thank you. What is the purpose of the migratory motor complex? Migratory motor complex is a large way occurring from the stomach to the ileum, and it sweeps the remains of food during the interdigestive period, and it is called the sweeper of GIT. How erythromycin increases GI motility? Erythromycin acts on as a drug, as an antibiotic. It acts on the motilin receptors and it simulates the action of motilin hormone. That is, it will increase the GI motility. Thank